Hey Chris,
Hi, Avery. How are you?
good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Um, okay, we can just get started. It's 7 o'clock, and we'll just get right into it, I guess. So I guess I'll just start with allowing you to give everyone your background and stuff, like what high school you go to or went to, your name, your interests, just basic stuff about you.
Sure, yeah. I'm Avery Smedley. I go to high school in Kennington, Maryland. I live in Silver Spring. I've lived there my whole life, and I've always really been passionate about like racial equity. And it wasn't until recently when I was kind of looking at like the roots of everything and really seeing how important housing and education are to leveling the playing field and just making things equitable.
Yeah, so you you have done a lot of work with education equity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we both I went to John F. Kennedy High School. So we're both in Montgomery County, I'm sure. So do you want to talk about some of the problems you see within Montgomery County, whether that's like with education or housing or any research you've done?
Yeah. So we're both from the DCC, so I imagine our experiences are kind of similar. But
Yeah.
just really seeing how it's interesting to me because there's this myth that, oh, like segregation ended 60 years ago with Brown versus Board of Education, but that's actually not the case. And I see it right now because I go to Einstein. There are some kids who literally live behind Einstein, but they go to Walter Johnson. And the differences between the two schools are crazy. WJ has 34 AP classes. Oh, and I should preface this by saying Einstein is majority minority. We have a lot more kids that are eligible for free and reduced lunch. So more concentrations of poverty at Einstein. And then WJ is like the opposite, which is crazy because we're right next to each other.
Yeah.
Um, so WJ is like 60% white. Einstein is 20% white. Um, and even they have an even smaller number of like Latino students, but at Einstein it's like almost a fifth Latino, which once again doesn't make any sense. We're right next to each other.
Right.
So WJ has 30 classes, Einstein has 21. WJ, their teachers are a lot more experienced than our teachers, and just like lots of different disparities, and just like the stark differences even right next door.
Yeah, I can definitely resonate with a lot of that. At Kennedy, we had mostly Latinx students and Black students. We had very few white people. A lot of people also were eligible for free and reduced lunch. So, and it was just a lot of, I guess, also a lot of like resource allocation, as well as teachers. I think like having white teachers at these majority minority schools. And I wonder like what your thoughts are on that. Like, did Einstein have a lot of white teachers and stuff like? How did you guys like really cope with that, or like make space, I guess?
Yeah, so I'm a senior now, and we do have majority white teachers, which is really interesting. Not reflective of the demographic. I think my whole time at Einstein, I might have only had, I want to say, like one black teacher, and the other one was a substitute, so I don't even know if I would really count that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I knew of two others, but I never had them teach me. And yeah, there's something really to be said about that because if we want to like keep students of color in NCPS and have them teach their communities and like the communities that they know, like we've got to inspire them by having people who look like them, which also like shows them like, hey, like this space is for you because you're reflected in it. But the issue with that is teaching as a profession is already kind of like going out. So it's really hard to say if everybody's leaving that profession. In Maryland, I think like 50% of teachers leave within their first 3 years, which is like
Yeah,
so sad.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And so it's like if everybody's leaving, how can we ask students of color and people who have grown up in Montgomery County, can you stay here and can you teach here? So we definitely need to work on that if we want to really recruit like more teachers of color.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I think it also is just I just feel like students will perform better if they see someone, if they see themselves in like an adult, someone who will like kind of motivate them, like you said. Um, so I guess we can talk about steps now. What is steps? You can explain it to everyone. How did you get into it? What was kind of your journey towards becoming involved with STEPS.
Yeah. And actually, you reminded me of something. The last question, I want to plug in something that STEPS has been doing. So, STEPS has been working to get the blueprint for Maryland passed, and this is so important to how it relates to getting teachers of color. Is that if we invest in education and we invest in our teachers and we actually pay them more, then they will stay in the profession. So if you don't know about the Blueprint for Maryland, check it out. Elected officials care about what their constituents have to say. So if we've got any MoCo people on here or Maryland people, like, please let them know that you care about the Blueprint for Maryland and you want to see it passed. So yeah, STEPS has been doing. So it stands for Students Toward Equitable Public Schools. As the name kind of hints at, we work towards education equity in Montgomery County. The way it started, we first coalesced around the boundary analysis. So there was one adult group that was kind of working on the issue, but I went to a community meeting and there were a few students there, but it was mostly adults. And I kind of noticed, oh, like, there are lots of adults in the space, but not really students, and students are the primary stakeholders. So it really doesn't make any sense. And that's actually where executive director of the Youth Activism Project, Anika, and she really helped me start STEPS because, like, I really cared about this issue and I knew other students did too, but I really just didn't know where to start.
Yeah, that's really great. So what, I guess, can you kind of share some accomplishments? What have you had any big accomplishments that you're proud of, or just things that you're working towards as well that you want to share?
Yeah. So we only started in like February of last year.
Yeah.
But since then, we've made a lot of really cool connections, really important allies in Montgomery County. I think we're really recognized as a strong force for students, which is really, really cool. Something I'm really proud of, over the summer, we had a virtual panel for progressive BOE candidates, Board of Education candidates, who we personally chose and reached out to. They met criterion that we'd created. And something really cool, everybody who moved on to the general, and that was 2 candidates, they were actually people who were at our event. And we had people reach out to us, grandparents, saying like, oh, I've lived in Montgomery County for 20 years and I've never seen anything like this. So it's just really cool that we were able to get people excited about local politics and really get like progressive candidates in that general election, because also at the same time there was like a pro-segregationist running, and it was like he got a lot of support too. So it was so important at that time that we really pushed for somebody who was aligned with our beliefs and would do the most good for students.
Yeah, and actually I remember there was a big, like, there were just a lot of news around that whole boundary study thing. Talk a little bit about that, and then maybe your experience at those community meetings. What were your main takeaways and like your interactions with parents, especially because they have like a big influence in Montgomery?
Yeah. It's actually funny, another connection back to Kennedy. The first boundary analysis meeting I actually went to was at Kennedy. It worked out well. After a track meet, I just took my sweaty self like over into the building and we went to the meeting. But it was interesting. It was a lot of students, a lot of parents. The only students that were there was my little group, and we sat at a table. It wasn't so bad at Kennedy, but at Walter Johnson, which is the second one I went to, parents are a lot more bold, and like what they say is like kind of blatant, kind of like, I don't want my kids going to school with like those kids. Even at the Kennedy meeting, there was this white parent who was very insistent on saying, oh, my kids are going to get bused, and that is not the case. And it kind of reminds me of those like dog whistle arguments that you heard back in the 70s when we tried to integrate. And it's just really sad how history is repeating itself in that way.
Yeah, I do remember those comments as well. Parents, mostly white and affluent parents, saying things like, like, we're not going to put our kids with those other kids, like those brown kids, those black kids, because they, there's kind of this notion that if they go to schools in the DCC, like Einstein, Kennedy, they're just gonna like perform worse, or like they're not gonna go to a good college or something, which isn't the case. It's just that we don't have the resource. Like, we're not dumb, we're not stupid. We just have the resources and like the teachers and stuff.
And it's really interesting what you say about down county schools, because also like what you're saying, like there's this perception about it. And I actually found out this year that out of all schools in Montgomery County, Bethesda Chase, and for our followers who aren't in Maryland, that's like a more affluent part of Montgomery County, especially Bethesda. they have the most arrests. So it's really interesting how there are these perceptions about the DCC schools, like, oh, it goes there, like it's going to be so dangerous. There's going to be drugs and gang violence 24/7. But like, look at the data. Like, worry about BCC. And yeah, so it's crazy.
And I definitely agree. There's this whole I'm pretty sure there's like more drug usage at the other schools as well, and stuff like that. But we're kind of seen as like the drug dealers and like thugs and stuff.
Right.
And it's also that affects parents a lot, and I think it kind of goes into the amount of influence they actually have. I think something that's interesting is that at these at the upper county schools, like at the white schools, white parents don't really have, compared to like our parents at like Kennedy or Einstein, like Latinx parents, Black parents, they have to work more and like longer days and stuff as opposed to white parents. So white parents are really involved in like PTA and stuff like that. They can donate money, they can donate their time and stuff like that. So I think it's also just I just think that's really interesting how much influence parents actually have as well.
Yeah, an important part of when we talk about like integrating our schools, because what it does, not only can we kind of dispel those stereotypes about, oh, like DCC is just full of like thugs and like this and that, but also we are actually moving the resources around and making it fair. Because like the thing is, Montgomery County, they do try to level up with like their funding, but that can only go so far. And like what you're saying, like the white affluent parents, their like political clout with like the PTA and the time and the money that they can like fundraise for, like that very concentrated in their schools, which like shouldn't even be, because Montgomery County is majority minority anyway. So why do we have these white wealthy enclaves?
Yeah. Going back to steps, what are I guess your main goals toward? I know one of the things you guys are all about is ending this de facto segregation. So what are some things that you guys are doing or working towards to kind of get to that goal?
Yeah, so we've really had to get creative with like coronavirus and doing everything virtually.
Yeah.
But I think we have plans to do like start a coalition around this, to also get some parent groups involved and some other student groups who have expressed interest in really pushing for the boundary changes. Because like it's really what we're talking about, like the power of like white affluent parents. They made it so that recommendations were no going to be made for like how boundaries should be changed. So at this point, we are going to have a report that comes out, but it's just going to be like this data and no recommendations as to what the DOE should do about it. So that's where steps comes in, and we're going to talk to elected officials and say, hey, like, will you commit to actually making change? Because even beyond like the racial issue, it's a huge fiscal issue, because we've got schools that are overcrowded right next to schools that are undercrowded, and we're spending money on like capital improvement and portables when that money could be going towards teachers or like other resources.
Yeah, it's very important work. And I guess I kind of wanted to ask, what is kind of, what do you really, so your whole thing is like ed equity. How would you kind of define ed equity? What's kind of the end goal? What do we want in the end?
We want a more accessible, equitable experience for every student in Montgomery County, because I think you and I have been touching on like it differs from school to school, the experience you get, and a lot of that depends on the color of your skin and your zip code, and that shouldn't be, because education should be the equalizer. And in order to make that so, we have to level the playing field.
So recently, I think Steps has also been working on just the presence of police in schools. Do you want to talk about that? Explain kind of what your process is, what's been going on?
Yeah, I think a lot of us have had like a reckoning with like the role of police and police brutality. With like the deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and so many others. We're really like reflecting, looking back to our own communities. I know my ideas about policing have changed a lot. And doing some research, I found out that we saw an increase in police officers in schools as a direct result of mass shootings, but no study or data that this actually protects us. And I'm sure you've seen little things too, that like they really don't protect us. And then at the same time, some data came out recently in Montgomery County saying that like for the past 3 years, Black students have made up almost a fifth of the student body and almost 50% of arrests, which is just like insane.
Yeah, yeah.
Overrepresented. So if you look at those facts together and like so many other things, you see that like police don't do what they're intended to do, and at the same time they just harm students and like put them into prison and like arrest them and disrupt their learning. So what STEPS is trying to do, we're part of a coalition with Young People for Progress and 27 other organizations trying to reduce the role of policing and get them out of schools.
Yeah, it's really important work.
Thank you.
Just having like we just need like equal schools, like equitable schools and stuff. It's something that I'm also very passionate about, like education, and also like just like curriculum as well. I wonder, has STEPS really I know you guys are like busy with a lot of stuff, but I'm just like wondering, have you guys gotten into that realm of like tackling how curriculum can be kind of a problem and how it doesn't really reflect us?
Yeah, so it's really great that a lot of other students have also been like picking up the torch and doing that work, because as you said, like we are doing so many different initiatives,
right,
and having the capacity to do everything. But we have supported other students who have made calls for MCPS to change our curriculum, because you're so right. Like if you don't see yourself reflected in curriculum, you don't think your history is important. Otherwise, it would be taught. So that really like perpetuates like white supremacy. And at the same time, you're going to be more engaged and feel more pride about your culture if you see yourself represented. So it's like keeping kids interested and engaged in school and feeling like important.
Yeah. And I also think it's kind of, I think a lot of teachers are kind of putting in work to do that. It's kind of hard to change. We have like Common Core, so it's kind of hard to change that and kind of go against that. But I've had some teachers, teachers of color, who have kind of adjusted their learning styles as well to kind of make it more relatable to students, I guess. Just having like more like group work, less homework, more books that like kind of reflect us and our history, for every like POC. And I just think we have to like give a shout out to teachers as well, because they're very really do care about education. If you really care about education, you care about like equitable education. Like we need to be represented and stuff. So yeah, I just think teachers are very important as well. And I wonder if STEPS has done anything with teachers.
So kind of indirectly, we did advocate and just before MCPS out with the decision to keep us virtual. We released a statement, and part really said like if we're really thinking about equitable education, that does also include our teachers, and it's unfair to them who are like older than students, more vulnerable, some of them compromised. So just like things like that. So kind of like indirectly, but important component.
So yeah, we've talked a lot about STEPS and all the important work that you guys are doing. So I guess I want to kind of get into more personal accomplishments, things that you have done yourself, kind of outside of STEPS, that kind of lead towards fulfilling your passions and goals and stuff within school. Is there anything that you want to share that you've been doing at school or like outside of STEPS in school?
Yeah, so I also lead my school's Black Student Union and Minority Scholars Program, and especially the MSP. A huge goal is just like closing the opportunity gap.
Yeah.
We do a lot of work with that. We actually worked on curriculum stuff over the summer, boundary analysis stuff, of course, and then just like dealing with, this is also like a very Maryland local thing, but like the Black ad pages. Actually, no, it's national. Like people talking about their experiences.
Oh yeah.
That better. Yeah.
Yeah. I was also involved in Minority Scholars Program at my school at Kennedy, and I just think it's just a great program for not only to like be a part of like a space where you feel like welcome and stuff, but also just having important like conversations and creating awareness and stuff. So I'm really happy that you're a part of it as well, and I really hope they like continue to grow and just have a presence in schools not just in the DCC, but like abroad, like all around MoCo and stuff.
Yeah. I don't know when you graduated, but I think now we're in every school, and even some middle schools have reached out to us and saying like, "Hey, we want to replicate this at our middle school," which is so cool. And yeah, I'm just so happy to be a part of that family, because there really is something different about being in a space of like other people of color who like really get it, and other kids who are passionate about it. Because like especially in MoCo, I don't know what it's like in other places, but I found the activism space kind of tends to be occupied by white and Asian kids, and you kind of tend to feel like the odd one out. So it's really cool being like in that space with MSP.
Yeah, yeah. So I kind of also wanted to get into how, because you're this activist who kind of started up your you kind of went down this path of to follow your own passions and your goals and stuff. And I just wanted you to kind of share kind of your experience and some tips for other students who really want to try to do that. I think it's kind of hard to do that in schools like ours, and DCC schools especially, where there are mostly white teachers, and you're not really given a space to kind of like express yourself and stuff like that. And also just being overloaded with like work, like school work, and also like extracurriculars and stuff. So what are kind of your tips for people? How did you do it?
Yeah. So I literally owe like all of my success to the Youth Activism Project. Shout out to them. And if you like the work that I'm doing, you'll like them. You should donate to them, because right now they're having a 4 weeks to 4,000 campaign. Any donation counts, literally just $5. It can go such a long way. And they're helping so many students like me, and actually focusing on like helping to uplift students of color, which like looks very different, because like you're saying, like there's not as much support, and there's not really that environment. And even with steps, I'm so proud to say I haven't seen any other activism group like this in MoCo, where the leadership is of entire students of color, and most of them DC, which is just like I think is so cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, like people, if they're interested in activism, like they should definitely check out the Youth Activism Project. I know for me, I was really passionate about this, but I thought, oh, like I'll just wait until I'm older and do this as a career. And I really didn't think that I could have an influence and make a difference right now. So that's what I would say. Literally check out their website and just like go from there. They'll help you step by step with individualized support.
Yeah. So you've also been a part of YAP as a staff member. And I kind of wanted you to kind of share what your position is and what you've been doing with YAP, and I guess kind of give more specific examples of how they've been helping you so people know.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I met the executive director, Anika, at a local meeting for like helping with the boundary analysis and just like making sure that we change our boundaries. And so she really formed like a relationship with me where I felt comfortable to go to her and ask her for advice. And I could tell that we shared some values of like just making the education space more like accessible to everyone. So just like really getting to know her, the people at YAP really care. I think too, with a lot of groups, you could have more of a corporation feel, but like the executive director, who's taking time to talk to me,
Yeah.
really down to earth, like really cool people who care. So you really feel that. And they really help you every step of the way. In the beginning, she was at the planning meetings, helped with structure, but now she hasn't been to a meeting for months. We have built like a leadership team from scratch, gotten so many members. So just like they will literally help you, like talk to you on the phone, email you if you have any question. And they have a guide to change, which really tells you how you build a structure, how you build a leadership team, how you figure out what issue to focus on. Because I know a lot of people too are very passionate about lots of different things.
Yeah. YAP is really a good resource for everyone. I think you guys should check it out. They also helped me in high school when we started our group Youth Up Health. And yeah, so I also wanted to just talk a little bit more about I guess the specific situation of being an activist during COVID, because it's a lot of stress and pressure as well. And I just wonder how you've kind of handled it. How have you been organizing? How have you been staying on top of things? Because I know it's kind of hard to like kind of get into the workspace mindset when you're at home and stuff. So how did you do it?
Yeah, that's such a good question. The sad thing is it all started like right before COVID. I mean, I was doing things with my Black Student Union junior year. Oh my God, that's when everything started, junior year. It's so
Yeah,
time is so weird in COVID, like it does
yeah,
not. But I was doing things like very small, very concentrated in my school, just trying to work on the opportunity gap at Einstein. And then I started STEPS in February. So we had our very first meeting in March, and then we had to do it virtually because that was like the week that everything they were saying like no like in-person gatherings. So every
yeah,
single meeting has actually been online, which is crazy. But I mean, there are also like silver linings to everything, and the great thing is like with a place like Montgomery County. Which is so large, we're really able to reach so many students because like if you've got like students from all different sides of the county, it's hard to all travel to one place. Some people don't even have access to a car. So I mean there's a benefit there to having things like on the internet. And then also too you can just like wake up and like get onto the car. Um
yeah,
but yeah, it's been to build like that sense of like camaraderie because like you're seeing everybody virtually. There's some people I'm talking in February and I've never actually met. So just, like making sure to like go the extra mile to like have those connections with people.
yeah. That's really great advice. Just kind of staying on top of your work. If you're really passionate about something, you'll put in the time and effort. And to also just take time for yourself and not overload yourself as well. Um, so yeah, I think we're getting close to ending. It was really great talking about just the work that Steps has done and how you guys have really grown with your influence as well. It's been like very like I hear about you guys all the time, and it's very like it's very exciting to see what you guys are doing with Moco because I kind of I graduated in 2019, so I kind of left right when everything was like when the boundary analysis was starting and stuff like that. And I really did want to be a part of that, and I'm really glad that you guys are like taking that on and just really putting in the work to make our schools more equitable. Um, so yeah, if anyone has any questions, they can comment it or they can DM us or Avery as well. Um, and yeah, I'm just gonna repeat what Avery said earlier about our campaign. We have been raising money so that we can just get more staffing, get more youth leaders, get more training for everyone. We really do care about everyone that we're helping, and we just want to really just expand our influence and really help everyone really do what they want to do. So you can click the link in our bio, and even like a small donation, like Avery said earlier, it would really help, and it's been looking good so far, and we're really excited for the future. Do you have anything else to say, Avery?
I don't. I would just say thank you so much for having me and like again
Yeah,
like
thank you.
donating to the app. When you asked me that question about like how they help me specifically, I guess like I should have said too that like it shows how much they are committed to like youth leadership because they gave me a role as a staff member.
Right,
Um
right.
I would really emphasize that. Also, a donation to YAP is a donation for democracy because they're helping with
Yep.
voter registration, which is so important. So they're doing lots of great work all throughout the country. So it really goes such a long way in doing so many things at the same time.
Yeah, like yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about that. We have a bunch of program areas that we're trying to get more into. Like you said, we have voter registration, we have ed equity, we have mental health for youth, just like racial justice in schools and abroad. We just have like a lot of issues that we want to kind of focus on with youth and kind of keep youth at the forefront and make sure that they feel heard. Because it's kind of hard to feel heard as like a young person when the government is like full of like a lot of old people, honestly, a lot of adults, people who are like 50 years old, 60 years old. We're not really seen in our government as well. So we kind of need to start our own like movements and stuff. And yeah, it's just YAP has been very good at just helping a lot of people start up their own campaigns.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we can end right here. Thank you so much for coming on here and sharing about your experiences and all your accomplishments with STEPS.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. Have a good day, Avery.
You too. Good night.